thank you for being here on the second day of the Designing for Empathy Summit and Workshops. We had a wonderful day yesterday thanks to our hosts at the George Washington University Textile Museum. And we are here at the National Museum of Asian Art at the Smithsonian. And looking forward to a full day of engagement with presentations and in-gallery workshops and talks. So our first presenter is Monique Davis, but I'll go into that a little later. I just wanted to go over our schedule today. So our first presenter, Monique, is already set up. And then Nathan will follow her, and then we'll have a group lunch here, courtesy of the museum, so they're hosting this lunch for us. Thank you to the Asian Art Museum. And then we'll transition into the freer auditorium. We'll be in this building, but we'll move on to towards the auditorium to participate in a tap dance workshop with Andrew. Thank you, Andrew, for being here. This is really a dream come true for me because I always wanted him to come and perform, in one of our summits, and hopefully you'll get a better understanding what I mean when during the workshop. And then we will have again a break and transition to the Islamic Arts Gallery, which is also in this building, where we will have a dialogue. But unfortunately, Mohammed Zakaria became ill yesterday, and so unfortunately he won't be here. But we did with Aisha. So Aisha Imam and I are both Zakaria students. I'm a failed student. Aisha still continues, So, but Mohammed Zakaria says, once you're committed, there's no quitting, unless you're dead, So I still have, I think, hope, sort of. But so we decided to go ahead, and Aisha has a very interesting background also. She does a lot of programming in this area, unique programming on art of Asia, Islamic art, music programming. So we'll talk about, from our understanding, how our relationship was with our teacher, and how it affected, our growth, and what does it look like? What does empathy look like in apprenticeship and transmission of traditional arts? At that time, actually, I would love to invite also, and I didn't talk about this with Andrew, but I know that Andrew is on a really amazing journey himself on, spiritual growth and teaching, and is sharing his knowledge and wisdom with newcomers, So it would be interesting to just maybe have a conversation about, maybe we can start in the Islamic arts area because we will be in the Islamic arts gallery. But then I'll invite you, if you don't mind, to share a few words and share with us how does that look like. The idea is, this is, I think, a very new thing to look at empathy in the transmission of traditional arts, because there's a lot of respect and there's a lot of commitment, and there's so much that goes into it. And I'm really interested in learning more about that alchemy that's taking place there. So, and anybody else who might have had any experience in traditional arts, learning or observing, welcome to join the conversation. So we have a whole hour to sort of chart a new path, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then after our talk, we will be with Mary Hall Surface. She was at the museum yesterday. She's a local playwright and artist educator. And she created a workshop specifically for this location and for the theme of this event. We were talking, what is the heart? Tell me more about it. So her workshop is called Seeing Through the Eye of Your Heart and Beauty. So I hope, I can't wait to see. This is very new, I mean, as you know, in galleries, there are many different kinds of programming that take place. Usually it is about the art and learning about the art. But we are going to venture into sort of different dimension and play with it. We'll figure out how that feels and if it might be useful to bring in more emotional engagement, deep engagement from the audience. So I would appreciate it if you would all keep an open mind and heart, and then share your insights and observations. So this is a working community. This is not an ordinary conference. We are working, we are co-creating, we are learning together. So this is all about that. So we cannot do this without your input. So I really welcome that. So with that, I'd like to turn to Monique. And Monique, if you could please introduce yourself first, and then we look forward to hearing your presentation. Thank you for being here.
Oh, no, thank you. I am. Thank you all so much. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Ela, for inviting me. I am a native Washingtonian, actually grew up here during the, I'm going to date myself now, but during the era of Mayor Marion Barry, Mayor for Life, and was here when the subway first opened in 1972. So I am a Burley Baptist Junior High alum, went to Howard University. I started off my professional career as, I call myself a recovering accountant. I went to the CPA boot camp at Deloitte, and then just fell in love with my husband, decided to make a radical choice and stay at home and raise 6 children, and did that for like 13 years after I left finance. And then we made another radical countercultural choice. We decided to move from Washington, D.C. to Jackson, Mississippi to open a barbecue restaurant.
Wow.
And then, did that for 5 years. I was opposed to it, but being the good wife that I was, I said, I'll give you 5 years. If you can't make it work in 5 years, we have to do something else. And so, we're doing something else. And then have always been interested in social justice. I'm a cartoonist and an aspiring children's book illustrator, and taught belly dance lessons in my spare time, and advocated for homeless veterans at the federal level, and had the fortune or misfortune to work for the Catholic Church, and saw how much money and power influences religious decisions, so I got disenfranchised with that. And then I decided, hey, why don't I try this art museum thing? Because during my formative years, when I was running away from chores at home, I would come and be a museum rat and hang out in all the museums. And so museums have a deep and abiding space in my heart. My sister went to Duke Ellington School of the Arts, and so just really appreciate this community of Washington, D.C., even though while I was here was Chocolate City, it's more latte now, but, gentrification is a thing, and, I'm parts of me are making peace with it, and parts of me are kind of mourning the DC that I grew up in. And so that's kind of my life story in like 30 seconds. And so, now I am at the Mississippi Museum of Art. I am the director for the Center of Art and Public Exchange, and also the Chief Equity Inclusion Officers, because nonprofits, you have to have more than one job. That is a Kellogg-funded initiative of $1.4 million that uses art as a way, as an anchor for courageous and brave conversations about race and equity. And so before I go into that any longer, I want to acknowledge that we are on the ancestral lands of the Piscataway and Nanaco tribes and other tribes that we know and do not know the names of. And so I always want to remember to acknowledge the land on where we sit. So this toolkit is I call it a cake baby. It is not a cake, a COVID baby. It is my gift, I guess, my love offering to the museum field, something that I wish existed when I had started to do this work. It is free and available on the website, and it goes on the journey of okay, so you have this huge mission, because one of Kellogg's strategic directions is racial reconciliation and narrative change. And we were the first, I think we're the only art museum that they've ever funded. And grant ran out, so we're trying to trying to get back in there, get some more of that Kellogg money. And so one of our key foundations of our proposal is that we were a trusted space for our traditional audience, and our traditional audience is fairly highly educated, middle-aged, white women making over $60,000 a year with probably an advanced degree. So I mean, we had a real clear knowledge of who we were serving. We also recognized that, you know, Jackson, I don't know how many of you all know about Jackson, Mississippi, you know, notwithstanding the water crisis, thank you all for all your thoughts and prayers. We have clean drinking water now until the pipes freeze. But Jackson, Mississippi is 85% African American. So it's a very blue bubble in a very red state. And when we began this work, we acknowledged and knew that our visitorship and membership did not reflect our community. And so part of this work was also to build relationships and deepen whatever tangential relationships we had with the African American community, and to use BIPOC artists as a way to do that. But before we get into any of that, I'd like to start off with an icebreaker, because you know, just lighten the room. And so I want you to share with your neighbor. I mean, you all might know each other, but I don't know you. And since we are intimate, maybe we can just go around this way. So I want you to say your name, institution you're from, your pronoun, and what is your superpower. And I'm a 14-year-old boy inside, and so I am just so excited about this getting ready to come out. This is part of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you don't know. And so I'll model. So my name is Monique Davis. My preferred pronouns are she, her, hers, and you can see I've had a minute to think about this. And I put it on here, my superhero name, because I'm extra, is the Mystical Maven of Madness. Yes, it all starts with M's. And my superpower is I can understand all languages, human and alien. Okay, so we're going to go around this way, and I'm going to pass it.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jen. I work right here at the museum. My pronouns are she, her. And my superpower is my smile and my ability to calm people.
My name is Andrew Nimmer. I'm from the Nimmer Institute. My pronouns are he, him, and my superpower is the ability to process environments.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Emily. I will go directly to my story. I think I'm a good storyteller.
Hi everyone, my name is Bhavna. Pronouns are she, her, hers. My superpower is that I can stay quiet even when there is noise outside. I'm from Nepal, and my organization is My Emotions Matter.
My name is Yulia. I am from a National Center, Junior Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. My pronouns he, she, her. And my superpower is I know teenagers' language.
Good one.
Hi all, my name is Ray Connor, and I am from Engelbeck Studio, which is a science documentary production company. She, her, and I'm going with a made up superpower. I can fly, because I just really want to fly.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yvelle Gontan, and I'm from the Woodland Park Zoo in Seattle, Washington. My pronouns are she and they, and my superpower is Love, love, love.
Oh, I'm working. I'm working. My name is Cheryl Montalvo. I am a filmmaker, and after a near-death experience, my superpowers, which I do not tell most folks, is psychic intuition. I keep that to myself most of the time.
Oh, okay. Miles David. Pronouns he, him. I'm a cameraman, so I guess my superpower would be memorizing anything I see.
My name is Jonna Henderson. The pronouns are she, her, and I'm from Glencairn Museum, which is just outside of Philadelphia.
Yay.
And I want my superpower to be able to be on a fly on any wall.
Oh, that's nice.
Hussein Rashid, he, him, his. I'm here at the NMAA. Since you're putting up Black Panther 2, I'm going to go nerd speak. Phoenix, but now I'm grooving a Moon Girl and Ridiculous Genius. That's just for you.
Thank you.
I've got a honor to present.
Hi everyone, I'm Amy Glenn. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm also from Glencairn Museum, just outside of Philly. And I love maps, so I think my superpower is to be able to navigate wherever I am, map or no.
Hi everybody, my name's Nathan Wiltshire. I am affiliated with Yale University and also Australian National University. I'm from Australia, in case you can't tell from my voice. My pronouns he, him, and my superpower, although I'm told, is that I have guts of steel. So after many years of visiting places across rural India, I can eat chili.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Grace Murray, pronouns she, her, formerly of this museum. And my superpower, I would want it to be reading facial expressions, to always know what the meaning behind the words.
I don't know, let's see if you can read behind the words if I haven't. My name is Gretchen Koss, and I'm with Gallagher & Associates. We're a museum planning and design firm with a base office here. Office, loosely speaking, since we're homeless at the moment, without office space. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I would say my superpower is that I love working within blurred lines, and I'm a good collaborator.
Good morning, I'm Brenda Cowan. I am she, her, hers, and I am at SUNY Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. And superpower, I want to be all of these, all of them, but alas, I think my superpower is enthusiasm. It's actually a problem. Get to know me, I don't know.
I'm Michelle Miller-Hauk, and and my pronouns are she, hers. And I am from Charlotte, North Carolina, where I run a consultancy called the Wonder Project. And so I also have a super hero name, and it is Charlotte's Wonder Woman. And so what my superpower is intuition, but not psychic intuition. Intuition and feeling and figuring out what makes people say, wow.
That's a very hard thing to follow. My name is Rana Chavich, and I'm from Yale University. My pronouns are she, her, and since I've seen that there are some aspirational superpowers here, my aspirational superpower is teleportation. Because I think it will solve 85+% of my issues, the world issues, because you could be there with people who need you to be there, and that would be nice.
Hi everyone, I'm Elif, pronouns she and her, and I am with One, and I I guess my superpower is I can swim as I fly. Yeah, I like to go like this in there, fly.
All right, so this is our institution. I encourage you all, if you are ever in the South in Mississippi, please come by and visit. And my intention for our time together here is to talk about, give you some background information about how CAPE started, to share some of the big lessons of the toolkit, and then to do practice methodology that we use as a core practice in our institution. I really want to, and also I think some of the best ways to learn, especially for adults, are like things like not to do. So I will be radically transparent in this room and tell you some of the big mistakes that we made as we engaged in this work. You know, because just something like that. Because like we need to model like honesty and vulnerability, be better humans. So the toolkit is available. That's our website. All you have to do is go to the website. This is actually what the page looks like. Click that button that says download the toolkit. It will ask you for some kind of demographic information like your name, zip code, and if you know the size, the annual budget size of your institution. And the reason we're collecting this data, one, is I just want to see who's like reading it and if it's making the intended impact. And two, I am planning a sabbatical next year, and if people are interested, I want to like come to your institutions and visit and do like, you know, the real life human stuff that COVID kind of robbed us of. But I am the person that has to approve the downloads, and I'm here, so give me like 24 hours so I can work the back end of the system. But I do encourage you to download it because there's lots of templates and nitty gritty like stuff, so you don't have to think about it. Even sample surveys, agendas, all that good stuff that people think don't take time but really do eat up a lot of time. And so I am a recovering theater kid, and so I'm going, in the words of Bobby John O'Neill, who was founder of Junebug Theater, I'm gonna tell you, oh dang, I'm messing this up. Okay. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. Then I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you what I told you. Okay, so today we're gonna talk about overview of the toolkit, the big lessons, equity, empathy, and storytelling. Then we're gonna like practice a story circle, then we're gonna open up for Q&A. So this is the table of contents for the toolkit. It talks about some of the data, wonky stuff. I'll go over that a little bit, but you know, that's homage to my accountant brain. Staff training, innovation labs, how we constructed artist residencies, the community advisory council, which is really a key practice, especially if you have the problem that we had where your institution sits in the area and your patrons don't look like the people in your that you're supposed to be serving. Programming, longitudinal studies going to be really juicy because that's where we made a huge, big trust breach. And then I'll go over big picture recommendations and reflections. So, what did we do with $1.4 million? Well, over 3 years, one of the first things we did is we bought art. See, because we did not have pieces in our permanent collection that were provocative or juicy or deep enough to be an anchor for conversations about race and equity. And, you know, like many institutions, and museums in particular, it was founded by a group of white people. It was started as a watercolor society. So having a diverse collection wasn't necessarily one of their strategic priorities. And so as we were thinking about what pieces to buy, in addition to the theme of being like referencing or talking about colonial past or civil rights history or even Afrofuturism, it was really important also to support BIPOC artists. So this is, so I just want to give you a sample of some of the pieces that we bought. And of course, to get the full scale, because this just can't do it justice. You need to come to the museum and just actually see it. So you can't tell in this piece, but Vinnie Andrews is really famous for like a collage type technique. So the cakes that that they're wrapped in are actually fabric. So I know, right? So you just need to come. Also should say I'm the treasurer of our tourism board, so. Like, a little incestuous, let you know. So this is a piece by Jeffrey Gibson. It is actually the actual size of a punching bag, and it says sharecropper. You can't see it all laying around. And he is part Choctaw and part African American and identifies as queer. And yeah, we just really love this piece. We have to stop kids from catching it. Ooh, I'm sorry. Okay, and then the boring stuff. Yeah, salaries, travel, project supplies, and residencies were how we spent the rest of the Kellogg money. So in order for us to do this work, we recognize that museum professionals are trained in education, interpretation, curation. They know how to protect and conserve artifacts, but they might not really be comfortable with having those kind of deep transformational conversations that can happen in the gallery. I mean, facilitation skills are not, even though they're coming more to be part of like museum professional training, they weren't really in 2017. There is increasing recognition that the ability to have a non-threatening conversation in front of a work of art should be required, a skill, but it wasn't recognized at that time. And so the critical response process is led by Liz Lerman, and that one has some academic grounding, but it is really a way to provide feedback and teach people how to ask neutral questions. Now, I have a philosophical kind of thing, and as I think about this in retrospect 5 years later, I don't know if there's such thing as a neutral question, but that's, that's just, as we evolve, as we grow, I'm like, is there a neutral question? But at least there's a question that makes people not feel like they're being attacked. So we can agree to that. And so it was a way for us to train our staff, especially our staff that was in the galleries and our educators, when people said something that could have been mildly offensive, let's say that they would not immediately go to they would not respond with defense. They would ask like deeper questions, like, well, I'm curious about what brought you to that, so to try to continue the conversation and not respond in kind. The one that we do continually with our staff is the William Winter Institute for Racial Reconciliation. And it's now known as the Alluvial Institute. William Winter was a much beloved governor of Mississippi. He was the one who decided that, yeah, you should fund public education adequately. Now we don't. He was one of our first Democratic governors. And he was part of Bill Clinton's kind of task force on racial equity. And that practice is based on the story circle practice, which really connects to the theme of this summit in empathy building. And they went into the community in Macomb, Mississippi, which was known in the 60s as the bombing capital of the world. And they had, and bombings from both sides, mind you. So bombings initially started by the Ku Klux Klan and the terrorists, but the black citizens then retaliated and began to bomb white folks. So it was I won't say mutual bombing because of the power dynamic, but it was a back and forth. And so what this institute did was gathered all of these people over a period of almost a year to build trust among them, to create dialogue so they could begin to be able to live in community together. And that practice is called the story circle process, which we'll practice here today. But it also has deeper roots in Mississippi. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Free Southern Theater, and John O'Neill and Doris Derby. And this was like the beginning of cultural organizing as it's connected to the civil rights movement. And they did plays, and they had to galvanize people to register to vote in the Delta. And then they created these circles and had people react to the content of the play and share their own stories. So it was trust building, it was kind of a call to action, and that is the model that the Winter Institute is based on, even though you won't see that in literature, because, you know, and circles really are the oldest, in storytelling, it's the oldest form of communication. Circles are democratic, everybody can see each other, it kind of shifts power dynamics in the room, but that was the core of our 2 practices to train staff. And these are some of the welcome table guidelines, which we have fancy names for them. We call them community agreements, we call them meeting norms, and there's probably some other academic ACT words that people are continuing to evolve and call things. But these are, you know, pretty basic, you know, respect the circle. I'm also sharing where I have problems with. I'm having problems with number 8 because I think it puts the onus of compassion on marginalized communities. So, but this is mostly good. You know, everything can be tweaked. And if you want the slide deck, I will send, Ela has it and she can send it out to you if you all are interested in it. And so these are some of the feedback questions that we asked participants after they went through the story circle process. And if you don't have a culture of evaluation at your institution, I encourage you to get one. I mean, it can be as simple as 3 questions, but these are nuggets that your development team will just love you for. I'm telling you, if you can have like a pre-survey and a post-survey and say, this is the arc of change, and we notice that blah, 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 I'm just saying this is golden for the nonprofit industrial complex. So, it's going to be simple as 3 questions. You know, just a nugget. So, one of the tenets of the grant was also begin to practice how to share curatorial authority. Do we have any curators in the room? Oh, good. Okay. All right. So, I am not born as a museum profession, and I adore curators, but I also think in museum context that curators are often put on this high marble pedestal that can't be touched by ordinary humans and have created their own language that people, and especially the people in Jackson, Mississippi, don't understand. They use ACT words, pedagogy, and blah, 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 blah. So this innovation lab was a way to kind of disrupt that. So we were in front of our artwork, and this us having a discussion about labels. And so what we did was we said, we're going to give you a label and tell us what was confusing about it, what you understood about it, what you want to know about it. So this is actual a visitor's orange lines. It's saying this is confusing, you know, this part of the sentence is helpful, and then, you know, like question mark, why do I even need to know all that stuff? And so our curators have begun to make more human connections, to simplify languages, but don't let me fool you, it's a slow road, because they don't want to let go of those ACT words. This is a national residency, so this gentleman all the way over here, that's Jeffrey Gibson, who created the punching bag. So we had 2 residencies. We had a national residency that was a nationally recognized artist, and then we had a state level residency, which was more local artists. And what he did is he did a residency around what it was to be LGBTQ plus in the South, which is, you can imagine, Mississippi, very conservative state, which is a challenge. And so he selected these wonderful group of people, 10 people. He did intense self-care experience with them. They did poetry writing. They went to church. They created avatars, and at the end they made this art piece called Wanderlust, and did a drag show at the museum. It was awesome.
Wow.
And he created this film. And so the key component of CAPE residency, it has to be built collaboratively with the community. So you cannot go into your ivory tower and create some wonderful thing, and I'm not disparaging that practice, but these residencies have to be built in response to what the community needs, and they need to build it together. And so that's the cover image for the film. And these were listening sessions that were had with 6 counties throughout the state, and we asked the residents like what their hopes and dreams were for their community, what their challenges were, what they changed, what they would like to change. And we put all that data on the website and did an open call for artists and said, hey, create a proposal that responds to these, and then we selected the top 3, and then we inserted the artists in those communities, and they got to work. And so these are the artists that were selected. Mark, who's on this one, did a 360 digital quilt, and he actually left the cameras in Hancock County. He had school children document what they were proud about in their communities. Daniel Johnson worked in Lafayette County. He did a symposium around the lynching memorial that's built at Ole Miss. And then Leanna Ambrose Murray was in Utica, which is a rural county, and she was working on a quilt that was based on people's photographs. The lesson from here was, unfortunately, she had to drop out. Okay, so confession. I'm a baby boomer. And so there were questions that I didn't ask this beautiful young woman who just graduated from school about project management, about the ability to authentically work in community, and I just made some assumptions about expectations that weren't clear, and then she made some assumptions about what her responsibilities that weren't clear. And so my biggest lesson from this is like really document and have ask better questions. Again, I didn't ask good questions, but these 2 here went really well. So, lessons learned. This is our Community Advisory Council. So if you remember in the first part of our session, our time together, I was saying that, our community, our visitors and members didn't reflect our community. So I went back to my accountant brain and said, we knew the zip codes of where people were coming from, and said, so the people that are on the council are from, I don't like to say underserved, they were from unreached. They were from unreached zip codes in our city. And so these are some of the beautiful humans that were there. They serve 3-year terms. My goal is for this to be a seating ground for our board of trustees, but I am still battling the capitalist system, and so lots of boards want to have a give-get. They want you to be of a certain class. They want you to be a lawyer or have connections to big industry. And so I'm trying to get board seats endowed and have people under 30 making less than $30,000 on our board. So that's one of my long-term, I'm not going to say fight, I'm going to say challenges, one of my challenges. But what we did with them, and this is something that you all can do, is easily replicatable, is a welcome audit. So we had the council park the car, we gave them official clipboards and a grid and sticker emojis and said, document how you feel from walking from the parking lot through the garden to the door of our institution, figure out how to go to the bathroom, go into the galleries, you can figure out, and this is what they wrote. So, this is cold because we're in the South and we're always battling humidity, so our galleries are really cold. Can't do a lot about that. And then you can see, there's a ramp, green space is good, but we also did have, you can see like the one like this, like the stream is a large space because we had a huge open space because we wanted to welcome light, but it was kind of also off-putting for people that weren't familiar with the space. And so, yeah, this is a sample of what they did. So if you can do this, I would really recommend it. It's a rich activity. But before you do it, be willing to respond to what they say. Because when we got this, we said, okay, what can I control? Well, I can't control the temperature in the galleries, but what I can control is I can move furniture around, I can create conversational nooks, I can increase the font size on the label. Who 22-year-olds make these labels? I don't know. People that can take. And so we can enlarge the font on the labels. We can, at least in our wayfinding signage and where the bathroom is, we can have that at least in Spanish. And so we made some of those small changes, and then we reported back out. This is what you said. This is what we can do. The other recommendation I would make when considering a community advisory council is please get the buy-in of your senior leadership team, because one of the things that my director committed to is that she has been at every community advisory council meeting, and that means a lot, because if the council doesn't see that your senior leadership is committed, then they won't have an equal level of commitment. And I'm going to quote Adrienne Marine Brown. It's like relationships move at the speed of trust. Mm-hmm. And you can't build trust in the community, with the community that you ignored for like 30 years. And so you have to, keep those lines of communication open. The other thing we did, I wish we could have paid them an honorarium or a stipend, but we didn't have that on our budget. But we did give them 3-year memberships. We gave them museum catalogs. Okay, so that sounds a lot better. That sounds a lot better than it really is. What it really is that it's like all that stuff in the vault that we didn't, we were getting ready to get. We gave them all that swag. Put a bow on it. So that's the welcome on it. All right, and this last juicy bit. So we had a longitudinal study, and our first group that we had was our typical museum goers. They were middle-aged, highly educated white folk, probably 50 to 60 years old, mostly retired. And we asked them to commit to journaling after they attended our programming. And so we would ask them questions in response to the programming. They journaled, and then we had a social scientist kind of code the journals to see what these responses were and to see if the programming that they were attending had any impact on their empathy, if it broadened their perspectives, if it decreased their fragility, blah, blah. And so we were having a report out session in a room much like this one. And one of the participants of the study said, hey, I'm just noticing everybody in here is white. And he said, yes, that is correct. And then we had 2 decisions to make. We had to make a decision whether to preserve the integrity of the study. And longitudinal study participants aren't really supposed to know that they're in a longitudinal study, because I think that violates one of the precepts, which I have some philosophical arguments, but we'll put that all the way over here. And so we could have lied to them and said, oh no, blah, 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 or we could have chosen to tell them the truth and said, well, yes, we're doing this because of this. And so we decided to tell them the truth. And we broke trust because people thought that we were implying that they were racist, that they were stupid, because didn't you trust me enough to tell me that you were testing my reactions to programming? Why weren't you specific? Why weren't you transparent? Why weren't you honest with me? And those were really valid. I mean, because our values of CAPE are transparency, equity, and truth, and so we violated our core one of our core values in the interest of gathering data to further feed the nonprofit industrial complex. And so we broke trust. And we haven't regained trust with probably half of the people that were part of this study. And so I don't think it was worth it. I would not do this form of study again. I would not recommend it because I just feel like it's inherently unethical. So we regrouped from that, and my director fell on the sword and said that, because I just like, what you gonna do? It's like, and I had voiced my concerns about it before, but you know, I'm not always the decider. And so we regrouped and we partnered with Wilkening Consulting, and we chose we selected a panel, but the panel was comprised of people that were just in the South, and we had screenings, so we gathered people that had very different political leanings, different demographics, and we were honest with them. We said, hey, we're conducting a panel. We want to see how certain types of programming move you on the empathy scale. And you will see all of the data and the findings of that is in the toolkit. But I will say one of the big lessons that we learned in surveying these people is, y'all, guess what? Guess what? White people don't think about race unless it's explicitly mentioned as part of the core programming. It's fascinating. It's just not something that kind of rises to the top of their thinking process about how to think through events of the world. And so how does that impact how we program? How does that impact how we create interpretation materials? How do we bring people along from the scale of intolerant to tolerant to inclusive to belonging? And how do you do that? Stories and culture and art. So, and I can't say, this was a 96-page report. And also, it's very expensive. This was $25,000. And the only way we did it, one of the main reasons we did it, because it was grant funded. I mean, it was like a specific line item in the budget. So we're still unpacking kind of how to realize all of the work of this. But if you all aren't familiar with Wilkening Consulting, she has a whole lot of free resources around and how curiosity is the gateway to empathy.
She presented yesterday.
Oh, that's right, she did. So great. So that's right.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, but she's amazing. She also conducts the American Alliance for Museums annual study, and I can't say, and I'm sorry I missed, well, she wasn't physically here, right?
No, Zoom.
Okay, yeah. So, but she's, yeah. So plug for Susie, but she's expensive, but she's worth it. So some of the big lessons that I learned as we made this toolkit journey: don't get too far ahead of your board, because your staff will be speaking this language of social justice, inclusion, know the difference between equity and equality and all that good juicy stuff, and your board will be like, huh, what is that? So, try to bring your board along. Be honest, if you're building a community advisory council or thinking about taking that on, please consider me a resource. You can reach out to me. We can talk you through it. But be honest about the health of your existing community relationships. I'm like, do you have to start from down here, or do you have allies and ambassadors in the community, and you can leverage your relationship with them and then expand that outward? Evaluation is a muscle, y'all. You just gotta flex. I'm just saying, your development team will thank you, and it can be easy as a Google form, a pre-survey and a post-survey, and some cute infographics. It doesn't have to be complicated. Be transparent about how you want to use data, which was our big lesson in the longitudinal study, and report out how you use it, and stay in that feedback loop. Move at the speed of trust. And number 7, and this is also a nice way of saying not curators off their pedestal, but value all forms of knowing. And so some knowing is that we need to, and just as Americans and people in this Western culture, we need to move head work to heart work. And thank you, Ela, for creating a space where we can learn how to do that together. And the secret sauce, the one thing I forgot to put on here is like, use culture. I mean, so if you're at an art museum, use art. If you're at a, you're a dance person, like do social dance. I'm like, use the tools that you already have. And the importance of storytelling. Like we did today in that brief moment, storytelling is non-threatening, it's personal, it's authentic, it's nonpartisan. It reveals our shared humanity. Who can tell you that nobody can tell you that your story is not your story, that that's not your truth. It's like, it's indisputable. A simple prompt can build deep connection. And so today, we're going to practice. Cultivate, before you hire a consultant, you can do a version of what we're going to do today, and you can learn things about colleagues, you can build trust in a way that's is only going to cost you time. So, how much time do we have, Ela?
We have 5 minutes. No, we can just, let's say 10 minutes, then we'll take 5-minute break.
Okay, so I want you to share with your part, so we're going to practice an abbreviated form of the story circle process. So typically, we would all be in a circle, we would all have the same amount of time, and you would all be facing each other. We have the same amount of time, and we have this core prompt, and it's usually 2 minutes. But today, I'm just going to ask you to share with the person right next to you, so we can honor your break. Like I said, I'm also a cartoonist, and I'm an old lady, so this is my work here. But I want you to share with your neighbor in a minute or less a story about when you felt like you belonged, when you felt a deep sense of belonging. Okay, so y'all pair up, and if you're pair up, does everybody have a partner?
No.
Okay. All right, yeah.
I'm the same, by the way. Oh, you're very
Do this. Tell me.
Well, I would say if budget's an issue, then build trust. If you're trying to increase the capacity of your staff, do something like we just did on your staff and build trust before you spend any money on a consultant. I mean, this is something that you all have the capacity to do. We tell stories all the time. I'm like, get your staff or your team or your colleagues used to telling stories. Start off with something easy and then go to something harder. So one of the hardest questions that we had in our story circles was, when was the first time that you realized that you were white, black, that you were different? And that's a juicy conversation, or you can say cisgender, or whatever you want the topic to be. But build a culture of trust first. And then, I think definitions are, they're essential, so you can have shared understandings, but they're boring. They're theoretical. You want to connect here first before you go to here. Any more questions?
you want to share?
I just wanted to share my experience. You know, your last prompt, I mean, was really so deep. I mean, we got deep like instantly.
Yeah.
and I'm like, what is that? What just happened? You know? I mean, it's the question of belonging. It's like it's something that we all yearn for.
Right.
We long for it, but we never really talk about it. You know, take the time to consider. We feel it. We want it, but we never really articulate it. And with someone that I mean, it was just deep very quickly. So
Right, it gets you deep quick, and the converse of that question, depending on how much time you have, is tell me a story about when you felt you didn't belong. Right? I mean, sometimes the deep question can be elegantly simple. I mean, it's not, it's about human beings and sharing kind of this heart space, which is why Zoom is just like the killer of this.
Yeah.
it's like, I know we're having this workplace culture thing about remote and blah, 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 but you can't do this on Zoom. It's a very cheap, shallow substitute. So, if you have compromised and done the hybrid where you come in for 3 days and stay at home for 2 days and do it in a day so they can come in, but don't, there's something about the energy when we're in a room together and the electricity and just like, yes, I came from Arkansas and had to transfer to LaGuardia to get to here because I wanted to be in communion with you.
Absolutely. And if I may, it just reminded me what Kabir Helsinki said last year. He talked about heart's ability to perceive quality. And proximity has a lot to do with that, like talking about the alchemy of empathy, all this storytelling. And it really, I mean, this is not just information that you transmitted, This was so much more than that. I mean, you modeled it for us, and I think that's the reason we got so deep so quickly. Because we felt the courage to, we're not playing games here.
Oh no, I'm not asking you about your favorite flavor of ice cream. No, we need to go deep quick. Any more questions, reflections?
Yes, earlier you used the term underreached as opposed to underserved, and I'm curious about that choice. I struggle with how to describe, minoritized. I've used people of global majority in the past as a term that I don't want to position from the onset of the conversation as lesser than other, but do want to refer to a specific group. So I'm curious about your
unreached is a intentional thing that I think that shifts the onus back on our institution. That says that it's our fault that we haven't made intentional efforts to reach out to that community. It is not stigmatizing based on income, race, or anything. It's saying it's pointing back to us. So that's why I intentionally chose that, because it needs to reflect on our unspecified or lack of intention around reaching out.
I had a question going back to pronouns. I had a really interesting situation happen 2 weeks ago when I was sitting with someone who is from the BIPOC community who told me that she had been introduced to a friend and she said, what are your preferred pronouns? She said this person was incensed that they asked what the pronouns were because they didn't want to be labeled. And she said, never crossed my mind, I was just trying to be respectful. And they said, I don't appreciate being asked that. And I thought, that was the first time I ever heard that. And it was from someone who just wanted to be respected as well. So I just wondered if you ever ran into that, because it really opened my eyes to that labeling and question of it.
I haven't. I think this gender conversation is really fluid, and I might just default back to names. And I don't know what the most compassionate, respectful response is. Thank you for sharing that. But that has not been my experience. But
if she was shocked, it was like,
yeah.
May I add also that this is a very American thing. If you went to somewhere like in Turkey and asked people, they would look at you, what are you talking about? So the problems that or the challenges that we are facing here are no different. different than, not maybe different, but maybe articulated differently or expressed differently.
Yeah, can I add, actually, in Australia, we have this really neat term, and we just refer to everybody as mate. I know in the US that might be interpreted slightly differently, I don't know, but it's just mate to everybody, doesn't matter who they are, and doesn't matter how well you know them either. If you don't even know them.
See, ours is y'all, so.
Or all y'all.
All y'all.
When you say John, right?
Like my soul, my heart, my love.
Everything is a John. It could be a cat. John is life or soul, spirit.
Anybody else? Before you all move to your break?
Well, thank you all for being such an enthusiastic